All right, guys, I'm going to walk you through the revolutions of 1830 and 1848 and how the conflict between the liberals and the conservatives was really tearing apart Europe. So just kind of a refresher on what liberals are versus conservatives. Remember, these are not in the sense we use them today in our 2012 political system. We're talking about the mid-1800s in Europe. So for them, liberals were anybody who believed in the Enlightenment. They wanted more freedoms. They felt like the Enlightenment didn't go far enough, actually. They wanted universal manhood suffrage, meaning every man should have the right to vote. And they just wanted a lot more equality, a lot more voice for the people. Conservatives were the ones supported more by the Congress of Vienna and the Concert of Europe. And those were the two groups that were trying to re-stabilize the monarchies in Europe and just keep order and crush any rebellions that were even thinking about happening. So conservatives definitely were pro-monarchy. They wanted to bring back the kings and queens. They wanted to kind of go back to the good old days of the kings in charge, and they just didn't trust people to be able to rule. So those are the two different forces we're going to see. So I don't know why this is so far down, but that's okay. We'll go with it. This is the most important part anyway. You don't need to see my funny little ridiculous drawings. So anyway, in France, we have a situation in 1830 where people are, they're still hungry, they're being heavily taxed, and they're kind of angry about it, and they want to get a voice heard in the government. So what they're going to do is they're going to lead some riots, and this angry mob is going to put pressure on the king, who then was Charles X, to abdicate, which means step down. And this new guy, Louis Philippe, and that's his picture right there, he comes and becomes the new king. He called himself the citizen king, and he does that because he's going to dress more kind of just like an average everyday member of the bourgeoisie, which you can see here. The bourgeoisie was referring to the upper middle class, definitely not the workers, but still the upper middle class. He said at least he spoke for the people. He wanted people to have a say. He tried to say, I am one of you. Now, is he going to do it? Not really. He's still only going to allow the wealthy to vote. He's going to favor the bourgeoisie. So he's definitely not really living up to what I think he promised he was going to do. That's going to cause some anger. In fact, I'm going to skip here to what happens. Okay, 1848 is a huge year in Europe, and France is no exception. By 1848, there's a major recession, and a recession is an economic downturn, where the price of goods goes up, wages go down, unemployment goes up, and people were frustrated. They really felt like, wait, didn't we just do this already? Didn't we do this in 1789? Why are we still hungry? Why don't we have any jobs? So there were two different sets of protests in 1848 in France. The first one is referred to as the February Days. Just like it sounds, it's February 1848. And this is where the working class protested and was so upset, and they actually did make King Louis Philippe, the citizen king, abdicate, make him step down. A few months later, the workers protested again for some more rights. And now here, the upper and middle class, the bourgeoisie, came in and crushed the working class's revolt. So it was not successful. Okay, and this tension between the upper and the middle class, which is the bourgeoisie and the working class, is going to cause a lot of that arguing here that happens in these two protests. So what we end up with, is a few years later in 1852, Napoleon III, who's actually a nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, takes over and attempts to bring back his uncle's structure in the glory days of Napoleon. So we've gone completely full circle in France, and they've ended up essentially with what they started with. Although you can definitely argue this Napoleon is not nearly as powerful as his uncle, and didn't try to take over other countries like Napoleon Bonaparte did. So the other thing that we're going to see is there's going to be revolutions really all over Europe. And they start in 1830. There's going to be a big wave in 1830, and then we're going to see another wave in 1848. So these revolutions are really kind of all about the liberals versus the reactionaries. And a lot of them are driven by nationalism, though. Nationalism is pride in your country. For instance, in Belgium in 1830, Belgium was part of the Netherlands. They didn't want to be part of the Netherlands. They wanted to be their own country. So nationalism there is going to cause that revolt. Belgians were inspired by what happened that year in France when the citizen king, basically took power. So they decided they wanted to separate from the Netherlands. They are the only one that's successful that we're going to talk about. All the other revolutions mentioned in Chapter 8 are not successful. The radicals are not able to pull it off. In Poland, they lose a ton of territory to Russia. The Congress of Vienna actually gives it away to Russia when they redraw the map in 1815. So Poland's upset about this. They want to be their own country. They rebel in 1830, but the Russians just put it down. They do not allow that to happen. So we're going to see there will continue to be quite a bit of tension between Poland and Russia that will carry all the way through World War II. Okay, other revolutions we see where they're getting crushed, they're getting put down. Most of them have to do with Austria. So in Hungary, this guy, Louis Kossuth, which I think his name is off the chart here. I don't know where it is. My screen's a little messed up, but this is Louis Kossuth, and he was the one that was pushing for the Hungarians to get independence from Austria. They weren't able to do it. Austria was very powerful. Austria is going to be really the most powerful empire here after France loses, and they'll be the bully. They'll be the ones that are kind of resented. In Italy, same thing. Italy wants to be their own country. They want to take back, especially these states here, from Austria. And sad face, they can't do it. Austria and France were able to put them down. So why do these attempt to gain freedom? Why do they all fail by 1850? Well, here's a few reasons. The kings are just too powerful. After the Congress of Vienna brings those kings back, they're too powerful. And the kings are going to have that backup of the military force. It's going to allow them to win. The revolutionaries, these radicals, they don't have widespread support. Here and there, they have pockets of people that are supporting them, but they're just not as organized as they were in 1789 in France. So when we watch the movie Les Miserables, you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see the revolutionaries are just disorganized, and they talk a big game, but they can't pull it together. And the other thing that the kings did was they took away a lot of liberties. They took away freedom of speech. They took away freedom of the press. And all of that is going to make it harder for the revolutionaries to communicate and to organize. So the other thing I want you guys to think about is anger here is definitely going to lead to bitterness as we approach 1914. 1914, why is that important? It's the year World War I starts. So even though, we're a good 70-odd years, 60-some years from World War I starting, Austria is kind of making a name for themselves as just being really, really powerful and making a lot of enemies. Let me show you Austria's territory. Move this here. Okay. Here's Austria. It's nowhere near this size today. This is a huge Austria. Look how big they are. And within this country, you can see we've got the current day countries of Slovenia, part of the Czech Republic, part of Germany, part of Italy, Croatia, Hungary, Romania, parts of Poland. I mean, it is humongous. So yeah, I mean, it's good to be big, right? But at the same time, what happens when you're a really big empire? It's hard to control. And the people that live here get mad at you. They don't want you there. They want to be their own country. So nationalism will really start to pull the Austrian Empire apart. And we'll see World War I will start because of anger over the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So it's all kind of related. It's all coming. So hopefully this helps you understand Chapter 8, Sections 1 and 2, and will help you fill out your Cornell notes and your study guide and get ready for the test. See you tomorrow.